I talked to Pete at the Wallops Village Shop about the effect the pandemic has had on the business.
The village shop has been doing okay during the pandemic. A lot of the older customers don't like going into the bigger shops, so we're catering for their needs here. The effect the pandemic's had on the business here, it has increased slightly because we're somewhere that people can just nip into rather than go into the shop and do a big shop. They can come here and pick up little bits when they need them. We've got a hand sanitising station just inside the door. We limit the amount of customers in the shop because of the size of the shop, and we put up safety screens for the staff. We are seeing a lot more people than we were seeing. Some of them have just discovered the shop. Some of them, it is because they still don't feel safe going to the big supermarkets, so they're coming into the little shops. We've adapted in the fact that we're trying to make sure that we've got extra stock. So people are asking us for things, and where we've got the space to put them out, then we'll get the extra bits and pieces for them. The rules regarding the masks in the shop are a good idea. It protects yourself, it protects the other customers. We've got safety screens for the staff, but we also have masks if we're out in the public side. The rules that should be in place in shops, I think, are already in place. Socially distancing, limiting the number of people. I think any more restrictions, you'd actually put people off coming into shops at all. The items that we stock are slightly different to what we used to stock. Obviously, people are asking for different things, and where we've got the space and to put these items out, then we'll get them for them. The village shop's preparing for Christmas. We love Christmas here, so we've got extra bits and pieces in. We've got our Christmas chocolates in, Christmas sweets, a few toys and games, all ready for the big day.
Spirit of Juno is a project created by Nina and Becca to support the Black Lives Matter movement.
We created this at a time where everyone was stuck at home. This was in the first lockdown, and a lot of the BLM protests were going on, and there was a lot that, like, I live in London and I wanted to go, but my parents were very sort of wary about coronavirus, which a lot of people were. So I asked Becca what she thought of this idea to make bandanas that are sort of like activist bandanas.
It was definitely like a good time to do it, because with everyone being at home and everyone being really influenced by social media, I think more than ever, especially as Nina's already said with the Black Lives Matter movement. I think we knew that Instagram was a really good platform to use.
During COVID, the impact of social media cannot be underestimated in this sense. Like, the power of everyone who was involved in the photo shoot, like our friends, our family, just everyone had such a big impact on promoting it. And that's something I'm very grateful for as well. We had Mimi Mucha put it on her story, which was very good for us. And that was very cool.
I mean, I think the main thing is that because we weren't at school with like the communication, like we spent quite a few hours just like on FaceTime and talking about it. But and I think that's great, but that only gets you so far. You don't really bounce ideas off as much as if you're like with someone.
The photo shoot and stuff, we got a lot of people involved, which is very cool, but it was still in a time like with coronavirus, so we had to be very cautious about that.
I interviewed Ellie about how pubs have been affected by the pandemic.
So obviously we can only do tables of 6 in bubbles. There'll be no mingling around with groups. We've got all the sanitisers, everything have had to be put in place. The signing in, making sure everyone's traced over the time. The wearing of masks and staff, constant hand washing. With being in the tiered groups, it's affected the drinking trade and the going out trade mostly. We've still been able to keep the food trade going through takeaways and tables of 6s. but obviously the regular drinkers have been hugely affected by that. I would say we've got more in the way of people who are coming out to eat, so a different type of customer. A lot less of the regulars will come out because their usual thing is just to come for a few drinks and then go home. Definitely less as a whole, but I'd say we're getting a different clientele to what we had before. The whole dynamic of the business has changed in the table service. It's run more like a restaurant now rather than a pub, of the no going to the bar and things. So it has just changed the general dynamic of what you'd call a traditional pub. The pub rules are very strict, especially if we're stay in tier 2 over Christmas and things with the no drinking without food. That's going to affect a huge number of pubs. So during main lockdown, you're restricted to key workers only. So we've had a few key workers over time, but it's definitely lessened the amount of people we'd usually have. So we are keeping a close eye on tiers at the moment. So we're working on the level 2 tier, which means we are able to offer food and drink and everything as much as possible. We're still offering the Christmas menu. So if people want to still celebrate, they can.
I spoke to Saskia about the impact the pandemic has had on Young Enterprise.
Young Enterprise is basically a project that we do in school where, as a year group, we create a project and we create a company and a business, and we have to come up with our own product that we then have to sell. Our Young Enterprise product is a card game that we called Mushy Peas. We wrote the cards ourselves to make the perfect party game. We have had to adapt our business a lot because of COVID. So, for example, at the very beginning stages, when it came to fundraising, we had very few options for fundraising because all of the fundraising that we would normally do required inter-year mingling. We had to have years come into contact with each other, but we weren't allowed to do that now. So we had to adapt our fundraising, and so we decided to put a lot more effort into our shares and selling our shares so that we could raise enough money to actually get the business started. For selling our actual product, a lot of the time we would go to Christmas fairs or go around school and sell the product in person, but obviously we couldn't do that now. So we've tried to start our own website where we'll be able to sell the game online. But obviously that's a lot harder than it would have been if we were selling it in person, because we have to design the website, we have to find ways that we can actually sell on the website and also do packaging and posting. I think we've adapted quite well to it because we're all quite technological. We have a lot of social media platforms that we can use to advertise and promote the product. I think that COVID and being online will have both negative and positive impacts on the business, because one of the negatives is that we are so used to selling in person, and all the previous years who've done Young Enterprise have all sold in person, and so we are the first people to sell completely online, and so that's a new challenge for us to face, and so that's a negative. A positive is that now that we are in lockdown, a lot of people are going to be looking for something to do over Christmas and when they're with their family, and a fun game that can bring everyone together, especially considering we've not been able to be together for a long time. So we're hoping that this game will encourage people to have family time or have fun with friends who they haven't seen in a long time, and just bring everyone together. That was one of our aims.
Pauline and her sister created a bikini business. I talked to her about creating a business during a pandemic.
So I did it with my sister. We had to do like a shoot to model the bikini. So we got our friends to do it for us. And that was quite difficult just because like COVID and everything. So you had to like so it was quite hard to like set it up. And like we did it on like a beach.
So we kind of had to still had to do social distancing and everything like that. So that was quite difficult. And also advertising, because it was quite hard to just get it out there in general, because usually big companies pay a lot of money to advertise, but obviously we didn't have that. It was literally me and my sister. We just kind of put it on Instagram. We got all the models to put it on Instagram as well.